Han was sitting alone in his small apartment when the knock came. It was not a normal knock. It was loud and heavy, like the people outside wanted to break the door. He put down his cup of tea and walked slowly to the door. When he opened it, he saw 3 men in black suits. Behind them stood 2 tall figures in silver armor. They were not human. "Are you Park Han?" one of the men asked. "Yes," Han said. His voice was calm, but his heart was beating fast. "You need to come with us. The Galactic Council has chosen you." Han did not understand. He was just a simple teacher. He taught history at a small school in Seoul. He had no family left. His parents died 5 years ago. He had no wife, no children. He lived a quiet life with his books and his memories. "Chosen for what?" he asked. The man in the suit looked at the alien guards, then back at Han. "For the peace marriage treaty. You will marry an alien bride. This is for Earth. This is for humanity." Han wanted to laugh. He thought this was some kind of joke, but the aliens standing behind the men were very real. Their faces were hidden behind silver helmets, but he could feel their eyes watching him. "I did not agree to this," Han said. "You do not need to agree. The Council has already decided. Earth needs this treaty. Without it, the other empires will see us as weak. They will attack. Billions will die." Han looked at his small apartment, his books on the shelves, his old furniture, his quiet life. He knew that if he closed this door, they would just come back, and maybe next time they would not ask nicely. "When do we leave?" he asked. "Now." They took him to a government building first. There, officials explained everything. 10 years ago, humans made first contact with alien life. Since then, Earth had been trying to join the galactic community. But humans were new. They were weak compared to the old empires that ruled the stars. The aliens looked at Earth like adults look at children. The peace marriage treaty was old tradition. When 2 civilizations wanted to show trust, they exchanged brides and grooms. It was a symbol of unity, a promise of peace. An alien civilization called the had requested a human groom. The Galactic Council approved the request, and somehow, out of 8 billion humans, they chose Han. "Why me?" Han asked the officials. They showed him a file. It had his name, his photo, his life story. They had been watching him for months. They chose him because he had no family, no connections. He would not be missed. Also, his genetic profile matched some requirement that the requested. Han felt cold inside. He was chosen because he was alone, because no one would cry if he disappeared. "What do you know about the?" Han asked. The officials looked at each other. "Not much. They are old, very old. Their empire existed before humans learned to make fire. They keep to themselves. They rarely talk to other species. This marriage request was unexpected." Han nodded slowly. He was going to marry someone from a species that was ancient when humans were still living in caves. They gave him 1 hour to pack. He took his favorite books, some clothes, and a photo of his parents. Then they put him on a shuttle and flew him to the orbital station above Earth. The station was huge. Han had never been to space before. He looked out the window and saw Earth below, blue and beautiful. He wondered if he would ever see it again. On the station, they took him to a large hall. Hundreds of people were there. Reporters, politicians, military officers. They all wanted to see the human who would marry an alien. Han stood in the center of the hall. He felt small and foolish. He was wearing his best suit, but it looked cheap compared to the shiny uniforms of the alien diplomats. Then the ship arrived. It was beautiful, silver and white with curves that looked like art. It moved without sound like a ghost floating through space. Everyone in the hall became quiet. A door opened in the side of the ship. Light poured out bright and golden. Han had to cover his eyes. Figures emerged from the light. They were tall and slim. Their skin was pale blue, almost white. Their hair was silver, flowing like water. They wore robes of deep purple and gold. They were the most beautiful beings Han had ever seen. At the front walked an old alien. His face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp. He carried a staff made of crystal. Behind him walked guards in silver armor, the same kind Han saw at his apartment. And in the center of the group, surrounded by guards, walked a figure in white robes. A veil covered her face. Han could not see her features, but he could feel her presence. It was like standing near a fire, warm and powerful. The old alien stopped in front of Han. He looked at the human for a long moment. "You are Park Han?" he asked. His voice was deep and ancient. "Yes," Han said. The old alien nodded. "I am Elder of the High Council. We have traveled far to honor this treaty." He turned and gestured to the veiled figure. "This is your bride. She has been chosen for you. You will return with us to There, the marriage ceremony will be performed." Han looked at the veiled woman. She stood perfectly still. He could not see her eyes, but he felt like she was looking at him too. "May I know her name?" Han asked. The elder paused. Something strange crossed his face. Was it surprise, fear? "Her name is Lyra," he said finally. "That is all you need to know for now." Han wanted to ask more questions. He wanted to know about this woman who would be his wife. But the elder turned away and began walking back to the ship. "Come," the elder said. "We have a long journey ahead." Han took one last look at Earth through the windows of the station. Then he followed the aliens onto their ship. The door closed behind him, and he left his world behind. Inside the ship, everything was strange and beautiful. The walls seemed to glow with soft light. The air smelled sweet, like flowers he had never known. Guards led him through long corridors until they reached a room. "This will be your quarters," a guard said. "The journey will take 3 days. You will meet your bride properly when we arrive." Han entered the room. It was comfortable with a soft bed and beautiful decorations, but it felt like a prison. He was alone in space, traveling to an unknown world, about to marry a stranger. He sat on the bed and looked at the photo of his parents. "What have I gotten myself into?" he whispered. But there was no answer, only the soft hum of the ship as it carried him deeper into the stars. The 3 days on the ship passed slowly for Han. He spent most of his time in his room, reading his books and thinking about his future. The guards brought him food 3 times a day. The food was strange but good. Sweet fruits he had never tasted, soft bread that melted on his tongue, clear water that tasted like morning rain. Sometimes he walked through the corridors. The crew members watched him with curious eyes. They never spoke to him, but they were not unkind. They simply kept their distance, like he was something they did not understand. On the second day, Han tried to find Lyra. He wanted to see his bride, to talk to her before they arrived at her world, but guards always stopped him. "The lady is preparing," they said. "You will see her soon." Han did not like this. On Earth, a man and woman talked before marriage. They learned about each other. They decided together if they wanted to spend their lives as one. But here, everything was different. He was expected to marry a stranger without knowing anything about her. On the 3rd day, the ship began to slow. Han felt it in his bones, that gentle pull that meant they were stopping. A guard came to his room. "We have arrived," the guard said. "Elder requests your presence in the main hall." Han put on his best clothes and followed the guard. They walked through long corridors until they reached a large room with windows that showed the stars. And beyond the stars, Han saw a planet. It was beautiful, blue and silver with rings of light circling around it like jewelry. Cities glowed on its surface like diamonds. Moons hung in the sky, each one covered with lights. "That is," the guard said, "our." Han stared at the planet. He had seen pictures of alien worlds before, but nothing prepared him for this. It was like looking at a dream. Elder stood in the center of the hall. Around him were other nobles, dressed in their finest robes. And there, standing apart from the others, was Lyra. She still wore her white robes and veil. "Park Han," the elder said. Before we descend to the planet, there is a ceremony we must perform, the unveiling. Han walked forward until he stood before Lyra. He could smell something sweet, like flowers after rain. His heart was beating fast, but he kept his face calm. In our tradition, the elder continued, the groom must remove the bride's veil before the marriage. This shows acceptance. This shows that you take her as she is without conditions. Han nodded. He understood. It was like a promise. He reached forward with trembling hands. The veil was soft, like silk made from moonlight. Slowly, carefully, he lifted it over her head. What he saw made him stop breathing. Lyra was beautiful beyond words. Her skin was pale silver, soft and glowing. Her hair was white, falling past her shoulders like a waterfall of light. Her face was perfect, with high cheekbones and full lips. But it was her eyes that captured him. They were silver, bright and ancient, like stars that had burned for millions of years. When she looked at him, Han felt like she could see everything inside him. All his fears, all his hopes, all his secrets. Then something strange happened. Behind him, Han heard movement. He turned and saw the nobles falling to their knees. The guards dropped to one knee. Even Elder, old and proud, bowed his head. Han looked back at Lyra. She stood tall and still, like a statue of a goddess. "Why are they kneeling?" Han whispered. Lyra's silver eyes met his. When she spoke, her voice was soft and musical, like wind through crystal bells. "Because I am their queen." Han felt the world spin around him. Queen, not a noble, not a princess. A queen, the ruler of an entire empire. "I do not understand," Han said. "They told me you were just a bride, a symbol of peace." "That is what they wanted you to believe," Lyra said. "The truth is more complicated." Elder rose from his knee. His face was serious. "The council kept the truth from your people because they would not understand. They would have refused the treaty." "What truth?" Han demanded. The elder sighed. "Queen Lyra is not just any ruler. She is the High Queen of the Empire. She rules over 100 star systems, 1,000 worlds, billions of souls. She is the most powerful individual in this part of the galaxy." Han looked at Lyra again. She seemed so young, so calm. It was hard to believe she held such power. "And she is to be my wife?" Han asked. Why would a queen marry a human teacher?" Lyra took a step closer to him. She was tall, almost the same height as Han. Her silver eyes were gentle. "Because I chose you," she said simply. "You chose me. You do not even know me." "I know more than you think. I have watched your world for years. I have studied your people. And when I saw you, I knew." "Knew what?" Lyra smiled. It was a sad smile full of secrets. "You will understand in time." The ship descended toward the planet. Through the windows, Han watched as they flew over silver cities and crystal forests. Everything was beautiful, but his mind was chaos. He was going to marry a queen, an alien queen who ruled an empire, and she had chosen him for reasons she would not explain. When they landed, Han was taken to a palace. It was the largest building he had ever seen. Towers of white stone reached toward the sky. Gardens of silver flowers surrounded it. Fountains of liquid light played in the courtyards. His room in the palace was bigger than his entire apartment on Earth. Servants came to dress him in fine robes. They prepared him for the ceremony that would happen the next day. But that night, Lyra came to visit him. She entered his room without guards, without servants. She wore simple clothes, and her silver hair was loose around her shoulders. "May I sit?" she asked. Han nodded, too surprised to speak. Lyra sat on a chair near the window. She looked out at the city lights below. "You are confused," she said, "and afraid." "I am," Han admitted. "I do not understand any of this." "I know, and I am sorry. The council wanted to keep you ignorant. They thought it would be easier, but I disagree. You deserve the truth." "Then tell me," Han said, "why am I here? Why does a queen need a human husband?" Lyra was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was heavy with sadness. "My empire is dying," she said. "Not from war, not from disease. We are dying because we have forgotten how to live." Han did not understand. "What do you mean?" "They are old, very old. We have lived for so long that we have become tired. Our people no longer have children. Our cities are empty. Each generation is smaller than the last. In 1,000 years there will be no left." Han listened in silence. He thought about Earth, so full of life and noise and chaos. He thought about the quiet streets of the cities he saw from the ship, beautiful but empty. "And you think humans can help?" he asked. Lyra turned to look at him. Her silver eyes were bright with hope. "Humans are young, full of fire, full of life. You have something we have lost, a spark." "A spark?" "Yes, a genetic marker, something in your blood that makes you alive in ways we have forgotten. The scientists call it the life gene. Only humans have it. And I believe that if our bloodlines mix, our children will have that spark too." Han felt his face grow warm. Children. She was talking about having children with him. "So I am here to save your empire," he said slowly. "You are here because I chose you," Lyra said firmly. "Yes, I want to save my people, but I also want to save myself. I have been queen for 200 years. I have watched my people fade like flowers in winter. I am tired of being alone. When I saw you on Earth, living your simple life with your books and your memories, I saw someone real, someone true. I wanted that." Han looked at this ancient queen who was confessing her loneliness to him. She was powerful beyond imagination. She ruled stars. But in this moment, she looked just like any other person seeking connection. "I cannot promise to save your empire," Han said. "I am just a teacher." Lyra smiled. "I know, but you can promise to try. That is all I ask." Han thought about his life on Earth. Empty rooms, quiet days, a future with nothing in it. Maybe this was a chance to matter, to be part of something bigger than himself. "I will try," he said. Lyra's smile grew brighter, and for a moment the room felt warmer. "Thank you, Han," she whispered. "Thank you." The next morning, Han woke to the sound of bells. Silver bells ringing across the city announcing the wedding day. Servants rushed into his room with robes and jewels. They bathed him in water that smelled like flowers. They dressed him in clothes finer than anything he had ever worn. Gold thread on white silk. A crown of silver leaves on his head. When he looked in the mirror, he did not recognize himself. He looked like a prince from an old story. The wedding ceremony was held in the great temple. It was a building older than human civilization, carved from a single piece of crystal. Thousands of nobles filled the seats. Their silver eyes watched Han as he walked down the center aisle. At the end of the aisle stood Lyra. She wore a dress of white light. It seemed to glow from within, like she was wearing the moon itself. Her silver hair was decorated with tiny diamonds that sparkled like stars. She was the most beautiful thing Han had ever seen. The ceremony was long and complicated. Priests spoke ancient words. Han and Lyra drank from golden cups. They exchanged rings made of a metal that did not exist on Earth, and finally they spoke vows. "I take you as my partner," Lyra said, her voice carrying through the temple. "In light and in darkness, in hope and in despair, until the stars grow cold." Han repeated the words. His voice was steady, but his heart was racing. When the ceremony ended, the crowds cheered. Music filled the air. The wedding feast lasted for 3 days. Han ate foods he could not name and danced with nobles he could not remember. Everything was a blur of lights and sounds. But through it all, Lyra stayed by his side. She held his hand. She smiled at him. She made him feel like he belonged in this strange and beautiful world. After the feast, they were finally alone in the royal chambers. The room was huge, with windows that showed the entire city below. The bed was soft, covered in silk sheets. Lyra sat by the window, looking out at the stars. "Are you happy?" Han asked. She turned to him. Her silver eyes were soft. I am, for the first time in many years, I feel hope. Han sat next to her. Tell me more about your world, about your people. I want to understand. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak. She told him about the history. They were the first species to discover space travel millions of years ago. They built an empire that spread across the galaxy. They created wonders. They conquered enemies. For a time, they were gods among the stars. But as the centuries passed, something changed. They became tired. They had seen everything, done everything. There was nothing left to discover, nothing left to achieve. They stopped having children because they saw no point. Why bring new life into a universe they already understood? We thought we knew everything, Lyra said sadly. We thought there was nothing new under the stars, so we stopped growing. We stopped dreaming. We started dying. Han listened carefully. He thought about humans on Earth, always fighting, always struggling, always wanting more. Humans were never satisfied. They always believed tomorrow could be better. And then you found Earth, Han said. Lyra nodded. Your world was like nothing we had ever seen. So young, so full of chaos. Your people fought wars over ideas. You built empires and tore them down. You made art and music and stories. You lived with such passion, such fire. We also did terrible things, Han said. Wars, cruelty, destruction. Yes, Lyra agreed. But you kept going. That is what amazed us. No matter how many times you fell, you got back up. You never stopped hopping. You never stopped dreaming. That is the spark we lost. Han thought about his own life. After his parents died, he had been alone. Some days were very hard, but he kept going. He kept teaching. He kept living, because that is what humans do. The scientists studied your genetics, Lyra continued. They found something unique, a marker in your DNA that they called the life gene. It creates something in humans that we cannot explain, a desire to live, to grow, to become more. We believe that if we combine our bloodlines, our children will inherit this gift. And that is why you married me, Han said. That is one reason, but not the only one. Lyra took his hand. Her skin was cool and soft. When I watched you on Earth, I saw something special, not just the life gene. I saw kindness. I saw strength. I saw a man who lived alone but never became bitter. You kept your heart open, even when life gave you pain. Han felt warmth spread through his chest. No one had ever spoken about him this way. I do not know if I am special, he said. I am just a man. That is exactly what makes you special, Lyra replied. You do not see yourself as important. You do not demand power or glory. You simply try to be good. That is rare in any species. They talked through the night. Lyra told him about her childhood, growing up in the palace. She told him about becoming queen at a young age after her mother passed. She told him about the loneliness of ruling an empire that was slowly fading away. Han told her about Earth, about his parents and how much he missed them, about his students and the joy of teaching young minds, about the small pleasures of human life, good food, warm sunshine, the sound of rain on a roof. Lyra listened with wonder. These simple things amazed her. For a species that had conquered stars, they had forgotten the beauty of ordinary moments. As dawn came, Lyra made a confession. There are some in my empire who oppose this marriage, she said. The council elders supported it, but many nobles think it is shameful. They believe humans are too primitive, too young. They do not want alien blood in the royal line. Han felt a chill. Are we in danger? Not yet, my power protects you. But you must be careful. Not everyone in this palace is your friend. Han nodded. He understood politics. Even on Earth, people fought over power and pride. It seemed some things were the same across the stars. Over the next few weeks, Han tried to learn about his new home. He studied the language, though it was difficult. He walked through the palace gardens and met the servants. He read books about history and customs. The servants were kind to him. They seemed curious about the human who had married their queen. Some of the younger ones asked him questions about Earth. They wanted to know about human music, human food, human stories. Han told them everything he could. But the nobles were different. They watched him with cold eyes. They whispered when he passed. They smiled false smiles and spoke hollow words. One noble, a tall man named Lord, was the worst. He had pale skin and silver hair like all, but his eyes were hard as ice. He never spoke to Han directly, but Han often felt his gaze. It was like being watched by a predator. "Who is Lord?" Han asked Lyra one evening. Her face grew serious. "He is the leader of the old faction, the nobles who believe our empire should remain pure. He opposed our marriage from the beginning." "Is he dangerous?" Lyra hesitated. "He is powerful, he has many followers, but as long as I am queen, he cannot act openly against us." Han did not like the way she said that. "As long as I am queen." It suggested that her power was not as secure as he thought. But he did not push further. He trusted Lyra. She had been honest with him about everything else. If there was danger, she would tell him. The days turned into weeks. Han began to feel at home in the palace. He and Lyra grew closer. They ate meals together. They walked in the gardens. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. And slowly, Han began to feel something he had not felt in years. He began to feel love. It surprised him. He had come to this world as a stranger, a political tool, but Lyra was not what he expected. She was kind and wise. She was lonely like him. She wanted the same things he wanted: connection, understanding, a reason to hope. One night, as they sat together watching the moon's rise, Han took her hand. "I know this marriage was arranged," he said. "I know I am here for your empire, for your people, but I want you to know that I am glad I came. I am glad I met you." Lyra's silver eyes glistened with tears. "Truly. Truly, whatever happens, I do not regret this." Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder. "Neither do I, Han, neither do I." In that moment, Han realized something important. He was no longer just a human teacher from Earth. He was the husband of a queen, the hope of a dying empire, and maybe, just maybe, he could make a difference. He did not know what the future held, but for the first time in his life, he was not afraid to find out. 3 months passed since the wedding. Han's life in the palace had found a rhythm. Every morning he studied the language with tutors. Every afternoon he walked through the city with guards, learning about his new home. Every evening he spent time with Lyra, talking and laughing and growing closer. The people were slowly accepting him. At first they stared at him like he was a strange animal, but Han was patient and kind. He learned their greetings. He complimented their art. He asked questions about their lives. Slowly their cold stares became curious glances, and curious glances became small smiles. The children were the first to warm up to him. Unlike the tired adults, the children still had wonder in their eyes. They followed Han through the gardens, asking him questions about Earth. "Is it true that water falls from the sky on your world?" a young girl asked. "Yes," Han said, smiling. "We call it rain. It falls from clouds and makes everything grow." "What are clouds?" another child asked. Han spent an hour explaining clouds, rain, snow, and storms. The children listened with wide eyes. To them, Earth sounded like a magical world from a fairy tale. Lyra watched these moments from her window. She saw how Han connected with her people. She saw how his warmth spread like fire, and she fell deeper in love with him each day. But not everyone was happy. Lord and his followers grew more restless. They met in secret chambers, whispering about the human who had married their queen. They called Han names behind his back. They spread rumors that he was weak and foolish. They said the queen had shamed the empire by taking an alien husband. One day, Lord finally spoke to Han directly. It happened in the great hall during a formal dinner. Hundreds of nobles sat at long tables, eating and talking. Han sat beside Lyra at the head table, trying to follow the conversation. Lord stood and raised his glass. "I would like to propose a toast," he said. His voice was smooth like oil. "To our beloved queen and her new husband." The way he said husband made it sound like an insult. "May their union bring interesting changes to our empire." Some nobles laughed quietly, others looked uncomfortable. Han felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. Lyra did not keep calm. "Lord," she said, her voice cold as winter, "if you have concerns about my marriage, you may bring them to me directly. I do not appreciate games." The hall fell silent. Everyone watched as the queen faced the powerful Lord. Lord smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I mean no offense, my queen. I only express what many of us feel. Our empire has lasted millions of years. Our bloodline is pure. Some worry that mixing with younger species may weaken us." "Weaken us?" Lyra stood. Her silver eyes blazed with anger. "We are already weak, Lord. Our people do not have children. Our cities empty more each year. We are dying, but you are too proud to admit it." Murmurs spread through the hall. No one had ever heard the queen speak so bluntly. "The humans have something we have lost," Lyra continued. "They have life. They have hope. My husband is worth more than 100 of your ancient bloodlines because he still believes tomorrow can be better than today. That is strength. That is what we need." Lord's smile faded. His eyes turned cold. "As you say, my queen." He sat down, but Han could see the hatred in his eyes. This was not over. Lord had been humiliated in front of the entire court. He would not forget. He would not forgive. After the dinner, Han and Lyra returned to their chambers. Lyra was still shaking with anger. "You did not need to defend me," Han said gently. "Yes, I did," Lyra replied. "Has challenged me for years. He thinks because he is from an old family he can do what he wants, but I am still queen. My word is law." Han took her hands. They were cold. "I know, but you made an enemy tonight. He will not forget this." Lyra sighed. "He was already my enemy. Now he is just more open about it." She looked at Han with worried eyes. "I am sorry, Han. I brought you into a dangerous situation. You did not ask for this." "No," Han agreed. "But I chose to stay. I chose you. I do not regret it." They held each other in the quiet room. Outside, the moons rose and fell. The stars watched silently. In the weeks that followed, Han decided to do something unexpected. He asked Lyra for permission to visit Lord. "Why?" Lyra asked, shocked. "He hates you." "That is why," Han said. "On Earth we have a saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I want to understand him. Maybe I can change his mind." Lyra thought it was foolish, but she agreed. Han was her husband. She trusted his judgment. The meeting took place in Lord's Manor. It was a dark place, full of old paintings and shadows. Lord sat in a chair like a throne, looking down at Han. "So," said, "the human wants to talk. How amusing." "I want to understand," Han replied calmly. "Why do you hate me so much? I have done nothing to you." "You exist," spat. "That is enough. You are a stain on our history, an insult to everything we built." Han nodded slowly. "I understand. You are afraid." His eyes widened. "Afraid? I am not afraid of anything." "You are afraid of change," Han continued. "Your empire is dying. You know it. Everyone knows it. But instead of finding solutions, you cling to the past. You blame outsiders for your problems because it is easier than looking in the mirror." His face turned red with anger. "How dare you?" "I am not your enemy," Han interrupted. "I came here to help. I married your queen because she believed I could make a difference. Maybe she is wrong. Maybe humans cannot save but at least we are trying. What are you doing? Sitting in your dark house, complaining about change while your people disappear." Silence filled the room. Lord stared at Han with something new in his eyes. Not hatred, something else, something like uncertainty. "You are bold for a human," said finally. I have nothing to lose, Han replied. My world is far away, my family is gone, but I am here now and I will not waste this chance. You can fight me or you can work with me. The choice is yours. Han stood and walked to the door. Before he left, he looked back. I hope you make the right choice, Lord, for your people's sake. He left the manor without another word. When Han returned to the palace, Lyra was waiting for him. She looked worried. What happened? She asked. I talked to him, Han said simply. I do not know if it helped, but I tried. Lyra hugged him tightly. You are the bravest man I have ever met. I am not brave, Han said. I am just stubborn, another human trait. She laughed. It was a beautiful sound. The next few months were peaceful. Han continued his work among the people. He taught children about Earth. He talked with workers and servants. He shared stories and songs from his. Slowly something changed in the capital city. People smiled more. They talked to each other in the streets. Young couples began to talk about the future. For the first time in centuries, hope was spreading through the... And there was another change, something private and wonderful. Lyra was pregnant. When the doctor confirmed it, Han felt his heart stop. A child, his child, half human, half, the first of a new generation. Lyra cried with joy. It worked, she whispered. The scientists were right, your genes, the life gene, it worked. News of the pregnancy spread quickly. The people celebrated in the streets. Bells rang across the empire. For the first time in thousands of years, the royal line would continue. But not everyone celebrated. In his dark manner, Lord received the news with cold fury. A half-blood heir, he muttered to his followers. This cannot be allowed. If that child is born, it will inherit the throne. Our pure bloodline will end forever. His followers nodded. They were ready to follow him anywhere. Lord looked out his window at the celebrating city. The queen thinks she has won, he said quietly. But this is not over. It is only beginning. He turned to his guards. Prepare the assassins. We move before the child is born. The shadows of his manor seemed to grow darker, and somewhere in the palace, Han held Lyra's hand, unaware of the storm that was coming. The night of the attack began like any other. Han and Lyra had dinner together in their chambers. They talked about the baby, about names, about the future. Lyra's belly was round now, and sometimes Han could feel the child kick. It made him smile every time. I think it will be a girl, Lyra said. Why? Han asked. Just a feeling. Mothers know these things. Han laughed. On Earth we have machines that can tell us, but I like your way better. They went to bed early. Lyra was tired often now. The doctors said it was normal. Growing a half-human child was different from a pure baby. Her body was adjusting. Han lay beside her, listening to her soft breathing. He felt at peace. After all the uncertainty, all the strangeness of his new life, he had found something precious. A wife who loved him, a child on the way, a purpose. He closed his eyes and drifted to sleep. The sound of breaking glass woke him. Han sat up instantly. His warrior instincts, trained from years of martial arts practice on Earth, kicked in. The room was dark. The windows were shattered. Cold wind blew in from outside. And standing in the shadows were figures in black. Lyra, Han shouted. But hands grabbed him from behind. Strong hands. He fought, kicking and punching, but there were too many. They pinned him to the floor. More assassins moved toward the bed, toward Lyra. She woke with a scream. Silver light exploded from her hands. It was raw power, the ancient magic of the queens. 2 assassins flew backward, burning. But more came. They had prepared for her power. They wore armor that absorbed her magic. They moved closer, knives gleaming in the darkness. Leave her alone, Han screamed. He fought harder. His muscles burned. His bones ached. But he was just a human, just a teacher. What could he do against trained killers? Then something snapped inside him. He thought of Lyra, of his unborn child, of everything he had built in this strange world. He thought of his parents, who taught him to never give up. He thought of all the humans who had fought against impossible odds throughout history. And suddenly, he was not weak anymore. Han broke free. He did not know how. It should have been impossible. 3 assassins were holding him down. They were stronger than any human, but Han threw them off like they were made of paper. He moved fast, faster than he had ever moved in his life. He grabbed a knife from a falling assassin and struck. 1 enemy down, 2, 3. The assassins near Lyra turned to face this new threat. Their eyes widened behind their masks. The human was glowing. Faint golden light surrounded him, like fire under his skin. "What is this?" one of them hissed. Han did not answer. He did not understand it himself. All he knew was that he had to protect his family, and that need gave him power beyond anything he had known. The fight was brutal and quick. Han moved like water, like wind. He was everywhere at once. Knives flashed in the darkness. Bodies fell. Blood painted the floor. When it was over, 10 assassins lay dead. Han stood in the center of the room, breathing hard. The golden light around him faded slowly. Lyra stared at him with wide eyes. "Han, what happened?" "I do not know," he said. His hands were shaking. Guards finally burst into the room. They had been delayed by fighting in the corridors. Other assassins had attacked throughout the palace. "The Queen," a guard captain shouted. "Is she safe?" "I am safe," Lyra said. She was shaken but unharmed. "Because of him." The guards looked at the dead assassins. They looked at Han. They could not believe what they were seeing. A human had killed 10 warriors. It should have been impossible. Elder arrived minutes later. His old face was pale with shock. "How?" he whispered, looking at the bodies. Lyra helped Han sit down. His strength was leaving him now. He felt tired, more tired than he had ever felt. "The life gene," Lyra said softly. "When humans are in danger, when they fight for someone they love, it activates. It makes them more than human." Elder nodded slowly. "I have read about this. Ancient texts speak of humans who performed impossible acts in desperate moments. We thought it was myth." "It is not myth," Lyra said. She held Han's hand tightly. "My husband proved it tonight." The investigation moved quickly. The assassins were traced back to Lord. When soldiers went to arrest him, they found his manor empty. He had fled into the night, taking his most loyal followers with him. But he could not run forever. 3 days later, Lord was captured in a border system. He was brought back to the capital in chains. His trial was swift. Hundreds of witnesses against him. He had tried to kill the Queen and her unborn child. There was no defense. Lord stood before the High Court, proud even in defeat. He looked at Han with burning hatred. "You have ruined everything," he spat. "Our empire will fall because of you. Humans are parasites. They will consume us from within." Han stepped forward. The court fell silent. "You are wrong," Han said. His voice was calm but strong. "Your empire was already falling. It was dying of loneliness and fear. I am not a parasite. I am a bridge between your world and mine, between the old and the new." He looked around the court. Hundreds of nobles watched him. Many of them had doubted him before. Many had whispered against him, but now they listened. "Humans are not perfect," Han continued. "We make mistakes. We fight. We hurt each other, but we also love, we hope, we dream, we never stop trying to be better. That is what your empire needs, not purity, not fear, hope." Silence filled the court. Then slowly someone began to clap. It was a young noble in the back. Then another joined, and another. Soon the entire court was applauding. Lord was sentenced to exile. He would spend the rest of his days on a prison moon, far from the empire he had tried to destroy. He went without another word, broken and forgotten. 2 months later, Lyra gave birth. It was a girl, just as she had predicted. She had her mother's silver hair and her father's dark eyes. When she cried, her voice was strong and clear. When she looked at her parents, she smiled. They named her after Han's grandmother. News of the birth spread across the galaxy. The first human child, the heir to an ancient empire. Scientists and scholars came from distant stars to see her. They studied her genes and found something remarkable. Had the life gene, but she also had the ancient power of she was something new, a bridge between species, a hope for the future. In the years that followed, more mixed children were born, humans, and fell in love across the empire. The old prejudices faded slowly. A new generation rose, full of the fire that they had lost. The empire stopped dying. It began to grow again. Cities filled with laughter and music. Children played in the silver gardens. The future was no longer empty. And through it all, Han stood beside his queen. He was no longer just a teacher from Earth. He was a prince, a father, a symbol. He had come as a stranger and become a legend. On the 10th anniversary of their marriage, Han and Lyra stood on the palace balcony. Below them, millions of people celebrated, and humans together, old and young. The empire united. Now a young girl with sparkling eyes stood between her parents. She waved at the crowd and they cheered louder. "Did you ever imagine this?" Lyra asked Han. He thought about his small apartment on Earth, his quiet life with books and memories, the knock on his door that changed everything. "No," he said honestly, "I never imagined anything like this." "Are you happy?" she asked. Han looked at his wife, at his daughter, at the people who had become his family. "Yes," he said, "more than I ever thought possible." Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder. The stars shone above them, bright and eternal. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving us." Han smiled. "You saved me too, you just do not know it." They stood together as the celebration continued below. A human and a queen, two worlds united, a future born from love. And somewhere across the vast ocean of space, Earth received a message, a simple transmission from the Empire sent to all humanity. "You gave us your son, he gave us hope. Now we offer you the stars. Welcome, brothers and sisters, the galaxy is yours too." Humanity had finally found its place among the stars, not through war or conquest, but through one man's heart. And that was enough.